Welcome back to By George from Page to Stage with me, Mr. Matt Ogden, and this man right here, Mr. Richard Sykes. And yes, you have guessed it, well, if you're watching on YouTube anyway, we are back at the LBT again. It kind of actually become the podcast's home again, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
And incidentally, if you're not watching this show...
Which you should.
We think you should for this podcast, because mainly it's going to be a visual of the stage. We're going to be taking a look at the staging and,
I can't wait.
the current state of play and how it's looking. Now, don't worry, we're not spoiling the set for you because it's not decorated yet. You're just going to see the skeleton set.
You're going to see lots of wood.
Lots of wood. And
Richard likes lots of wood.
It'll be very impressive. It's all erected beautifully at the moment. So I can't wait for you to see that marvellous erection in full flood. Just
God.
marvellous.
There's also a chip shop fryer as well.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, don't worry. You'll be able to see steel in that erection as well. Yes.
And glass.
So, Matt, but there are other things to chat about because we have, I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago about a trio.
You did.
I said I had to think of a name for them because they're our team of backing singers.
Trio, if I remember rightly.
Trio is right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had
Original.
our first rehearsal. They were all back from their holidays or their breaks.
Yeah.
And so they the three that we chose as the trio have come back and now we've discovered that there's
some drama sound.
There is. There's not a lot of time for us to do what we want to do with the trio.
Okay.
We're down to 2-3 weeks to go now.
Yeah.
And so what I've decided to do is simplify it.
Okay.
The trio is still going to be there. And they're still going to be doing pretty much exactly the same, but we're going to take a few of the lines out and make it easier for them to sing.
Right.
It won't. We realised it wouldn't impact anything about the enjoyment of the song. So basically, they're in a three-part trio for one of the songs, and it'll be a 2-part, but there'll be 3 of them there.
Okay.
For the second one.
So the lyrics aren't changing?
No, and the timing isn't changing. Nothing like that is changing.
It's just how many ludicrous
It's
harmonies
just how many ludicrous... Yes, I realised that it was far too adventurous for me to do what I was doing. Plus, the harmonies are covered in the orchestration anyway.
Oh, okay.
So it'll sound exactly the same with less work.
And so just to remind those listening / watching at home, Trio is made up of...
Yeah, there's a lady called Sydney, and we've also got Becky in there as well, and Johnny.
Lovely.
Now, originally, it was going to be 3 girls.
Yep.
They were going to be like the singers in... If you've ever seen Little Shop of Horrors...
Yeah.
There are 3 singers who act like a Greek chorus, and it was going to have nods of that. In this, they are deliberately set into the scenes, so they are either a figment of someone's imagination or they are cleaners, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning it. So they're kind of just background characters in the scenes.
Yeah, but there's a diegetic reason for them to be there, you know. So it's going to be an interesting take on it, but they're only there for 2 numbers.
So it's not like in Priscilla where you've got the 3 singers who are kind of just like there and there's no real logic or reason for them.
No, there's a logic.
They're almost like shadows of the,
That's
the 3
right.
main
there's a point to them in the story and furtherance of the story. But for this, no, these are backing singers.
Yeah.
And so originally it was going to be 3 girls.
Yeah.
But Johnny is so very good at harmonies.
He really is.
Absolutely
We've
brilliant.
mentioned it before. He's got all that choral singing experience.
So much talent in that guy.
Plus he's got a big old high tenor voice.
Yeah, he can really do it. So we've flipped the harmonies around a little.
Yeah.
And Johnny is now on top, which is extraordinary. So he's taking what was the top note is now a lower note.
Not sure he's ever said that before.
I don't think he has.
No.
But anyway, nevertheless there are three singers. Johnny will be essentially taking the top line, which has now been transposed down an octave, so it's under the other 2 girls now. Yeah.
He's on top by being under.
Yes. He's on the top line, which is now underneath, so the 2 girls are on top.
I can see why this got confusing.
It did get confusing at the rehearsal, but nonetheless, they are the 2 numbers that Neil has set for this are just miraculously entertaining.
Whereabouts do these fit into the plot? Because I haven't seen these yet, have I? So...
In my opinion, when musicals usually lag is in the middle.
Yeah.
With musicals, there's usually a decent opening and then there's a good finale.
A bit of a lull before.
In the middle, it's the energy in the middle, and a lot of the comedy in By George sits right in the middle. So just before the interval and just after the interval, you get a barrage of comedy numbers, including things like Aren't We Outrageous? You also get an emotional punch when Pauline confronts Sam about being a stripper. And then you get that emotion moves into elation, which you get just before the interval. So there's an awful lot going on. And as we come out of the interval, what you get is another scene with a song called Crazy Star, which is a deliberately very upbeat, catchy pop song.
Yeah, which we saw at Summer in the Courtyard, didn't we?
Yeah, we did that one in the Courtyard. Then we go into another number, which is a vamp number for Marge, which is called Let's Get Cooking, which is the filthiest song I've ever written. And that segues into a song called Mr. Wonderful. And featured within those numbers, you've got 2 numbers for our backing singers who really give it punch and energy. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's a change that's been made to the scoring. And that's happened with 2 weeks to go.
God.
Yeah.
So is there any, before we go and have a chat to James and see how the set's coming along with as you say, 2 weeks to go by the time this episode comes out, but 3 weeks to go at the time of filming. Yeah. Are there any other crazy last minute changes that we need to be aware of? Any other hats that you've put on this week or?
No. One thing is that we've decided these are very, very small changes or minute changes, which are all improvements in my eye.
Yeah.
Instead of now sitting on a windowsill, George is going to be up a ladder at some point for some reason. I can't tell you why because it's a plot point. But there you go. You'll find out on the day. There's also, so that's changed. It doesn't necessarily impact the script at all. It's just the visual. Yeah. There's no real changes to the movement. Everything fits onto the stage. There's a few changes to my costume. Originally, I hadn't intended on being there in my boxers, but apparently I'm now getting my legs out.
Oh, really?
Show. Yeah, strange.
Was that an essential part of the plot, or is that just?
I think Neil just fancied seeing me in my boxers again. Possibly.
I mean, it's nice that it's someone else's turn, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll be getting my gut into a vest at some point as well. So,
are you going to look like? Are you going to look like Wallace in Wallace and Gromit in the trousers?
No, I think probably more like Onslow in Keeping Up Appearances, sadly. So, I think that's the way we're going with George at the moment.
Oh, God, that's so good. That's a really good way of putting him. Onslow in Keeping Up Appearances.
Oh, thanks.
Visually, I think that's a really good way of picturing
this
George.
This is my character.
No, I'm not saying you
the
look
same
like
as Jeffrey Hughes.
Yeah, I'm saying that's a really good... Am I right in thinking he was in Heartbeat as well, that guy? Yeah, which is Yorkshire, right?
I was in Coronation Street for a long time.
Yeah.
You're going back a bit. Yeah.
I used to watch UK Gold with my grandparents.
Oh, well.
Saw plenty of Keeping Up Appearances.
Sadly, my stint as George hasn't been influenced by that particular actor.
No,
I'm sorry about that.
But visually, there's going to be some...
there's going to be an element, trust me. Probably have the grease.
I'm assuming the boxes are going to have like little fish and chip patterns, or are they going to be oversized boxes?
No, interestingly, because everything is hyper real on here, we decided not to go for novelty stuff. Oh, right. Not really. It doesn't quite sit. Because George doesn't like working in his chippy. The last thing he'd want on his boxers is fish and chips. Good point. So we've gone for just the reason it's going to be white. Yeah, I know. At my age,
you don't get too sweaty.
At my age, that has inherent dangers, front and back. Yeah. So we'll see.
The only thing I can say is 2 words, though. Yeah. As someone who's taken his kit off on that stage a few times. Yeah. Most recently, not most recently, that was Priscilla, but most recently, where I had to whip stuff off, and you did see a very little of me, was in Sunset Boulevard.
Yes.
The 2 words I'm going to say to you that are very critical: dance belt.
Yeah. It's all right, already purchased.
Oh, good.
I have it.
Because no one needs to see your sausage and onion rings, do they? But...
Oh, certainly not. But beautifully put and well themed with the chip shop.
Well, yes, quite. Yeah,
so, speaking of which, I suppose we better show you this set. As I said, James will be talking us through the set, so you'll still get a fair bit of the audio. However, if we can recommend, if you go onto YouTube and you can take a look at the set as part of this podcast.
Oh gosh, yeah, don't listen to it. Go and watch it. And otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Plus you don't get to see how funny it is seeing how little I am next to how tall James is.
Yeah, we forgot how small you were, so framing it was quite difficult because James is very tall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's surprisingly tall. Or I'm surprisingly small. But yeah, so let's go chat to James and we'll see how the fish and chip shop and the bar are being constructed and what the plan is.
Indeed. Enjoy.
So, we are backstage at the LBT, and Mr. James Clare right here is going to take me round the set that's currently still being built, and you're going to teach me a little bit about what's going on, right, James?
Well, we'll have a go.
We'll have a chat anyway. Cool. So
Come on
follow
in.
us. Right, so first of all, we've got a bar being set up right here.
Yeah, so the set is split into two main sections.
Yeah.
You've got the bar over here.
Yeah.
And the famous chip shop over here.
The famous chip shop.
And the rest of the space is utilised to cover all the other scenes, really.
Yeah.
You'll see in the auditorium, if Richard pans round, we're in our traditional end stage format here.
Ta-da.
This won't be what it's like during By George Run.
Okay.
We extend the stage out another 2 metres, really. Lose the first 2 rows, and that will drop down and become sort of a road section to give us another world in this space.
Yeah, outside of the
Yeah,
tube.
it's about the tricky bit, I suppose, for this build has been how do you have such detailed sets? I mean, they look really plain at the minute because they're not been dressed, but how do you have two detailed spaces, but then also come completely out of that and then back into those spaces?
Because you've got scenes where you're nowhere near a fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
You're in like an exercise area or you're out and about in the street.
Yeah, you'll have seen some scenes in rehearsals and thought, well, that's
That's not like a fish and chip shop.
But
now
this,
we're syncing up.
Exactly, this process will be about, I mean, these, like we say, are completely bland at the moment, but we're now sort of putting the building blocks in the right places, making sure things are the right sizes.
Yeah.
We've been working with Joe and John Hunt. They've been building it and designing it sort of as we go. We've done it a bit sort of in-house and collaborating with them. They're really great joiners, so they're able to just go, oh, we need a little bit there, and suddenly 20 minutes later you've got a section of bar or a fish and chip shop counter, windows, things like that, the false ceilings. So it will be about having a hyper-realistic, it should feel like you are in that bar that you remember, or that fish and chip shop that you remember. The slightly tacky, nice little details. That's what I love putting in, is sort of like, we were talking yesterday, how do you make the floor look not brand new? It shouldn't feel like a brand new chip you'd start with.
Yeah, it's new, but it's authentically worn in.
Yeah, it's those different things, and the bar and what knickknacks you can have on that back. So when you come watch it, have a look.
Some pickled eggs and things like that.
See what weird things you see on the back bar.
So starting with the bar there, you just mentioned before we started filming that you're off to Manchester today, right?
Yeah,
and you're going to get some bits and bobs for the bar.
Yeah, so because we're trying to make it this ultra real bar, it needs to have working taps. It needs to have the proper brass, old-fashioned drinking trays that you'd remember. You can't just go, oh, here's a bar, here's a pint glass, job done. It's a bit more trying to fill in all those little details. So yeah, we bought from Manchester some like old lager taps. We're trying a little bit, not necessarily just to save on cost, but to try buy used things rather than stuff going in landfill and reusing sets. Hopefully this will have a life after this, but if it doesn't necessarily for this, it'd be nice to see some of those items go on to different productions. Trying to think of the sustainable nature of
it can either be reused for that or another show.
Yeah, and these are built in a way that they're compact. They're not taking up loads of space. There's, like, it looks solid from this side, but it's hollow on the other.
Big, but it's actually quite.
Yeah, it's done well and it's compact.
Yeah.
Behind us, what we haven't built is the orchestra will be above both of this section.
Okay.
So they sit at just over 8 foot high.
Yeah.
Behind the doors, so we can see them if we want to, but we can hide them if we don't for the scenes that are in these two specific areas.
Yeah.
So there is quite a bit to still build and construct, but it's getting there. You can sort of see that there is a chip shop and there is a bar.
I think the first detail, I suppose, if we moving on from the bar, we look past this Clare work.
Yeah, this will be it.
Might make it a bit difficult for the actors to do pump it out, but the first thing that you notice is obviously the chip fryer that Richard showed me way back in like one of the first episodes, or just after one of the first episodes. That's the first like kind of centerpiece that's there, so you can see visually how it's gonna start coming together.
The challenge is, which sounds easy, we all recognise that.
Yeah.
But what you don't have is, there's no set. You can't Google how high is a chip shop counter. So I'm not saying we've done
quite high actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's playing that off. So we've done a bit of market research. What's quite nice is doing market research.
It means
he
went to a lot of chip shops
and a pub. That's quite good.
Really?
Just to check.
You guys went to the pub? I'm surprised by that.
So that is actually, like you say, slightly lower than a normal one.
Yeah. That's only because I'm little and I know they're normally bigger than me.
But we're doing it for. You have to have a bit of artistic license because if it is at normal height, they're obviously acting behind here. You wouldn't see.
And obviously,
them
Nikki's a little bit shorter than me as well. So like the audience, especially the people who, as you say, on the front rows, they'll need to see her. So what's the plan for this area?
So it will be at this height, but it's again about playing that. This will have glasses, it's like hollow at the minute. But this will all be latent perspex, so we can do quite clever things. And that comes down to, at technical rehearsal, tweaking the blocking to make that suit the room.
So will the actors be raised up, or is this the height they'll be at?
No, that's the height. For this bit, there's some scenes where they are raised up in different ways, but I'll not give the game away completely the show.
Good.
So now it's a case of just sort of dressing it, and I mean they're finishing off some finishing touches and little building blocks and tweaks this week, but then it is a case of literally decorating, putting different dressings on, so it's like all the panelling that people know and sort of recognise from a chip shop, the extra detailing on the front of the bar, everything gets wrapped so it looks like a wood effect in some areas.
So you mentioned about like making it so that obviously everything's being constructed brand new, but you're using some bits like like the fonts and the pumps
like
and like old chip shop fryers. Obviously for that you don't want to like clean it up and make it look too new because you want it to look like worn in, and especially with this being a traditional fish and chip shop. So what's the process of like making something new like this and then aging it up to make it look authentically older? How does that work?
It's a little bit of trial and error, but it's using some techniques. So, like here, where there'll be a flat traditional counter that flaps down, with a little door in it. Yeah. Here, you would imagine in your head that it's worn
really
away
worn.
because that's where you see it.
Details.
So you sort of buff that out to make it feel. And the flooring's horrible.
Just scrape loads of sacks of potatoes over it when it's done.
And I think some of it is that a bit of trial and error of working it out. Of like there isn't a guidebook of how you build a fake chip shop inside in a theatre, but we'll have a go and we'll try it out.
Yeah.
It's been nice for us because we're not traditionally a producing house. It's the first time in my era that we've produced, like we built on stage from scratch over such a sort of period of time. So it's been quite nice, but it's all a bit new. So we are using different skills, like John and Joe have built sets before quite a bit. So we're just leaning on their expertise, and I just keep coming in with ideas, saying, "Oh, what if we did this?" They just either write it down or ignore me.
Is this just all the experience of going to fish and chip shops and pubs?
Yeah, I've seen this.
This would be good. Yeah.
Literally, my eBay is just full of random pub or like memorabilia. We were looking at the Crown stuff, so there's loads of like Jubilee mugs. So the things that it'll suggest now for the rest of time are awful.
I suppose the beauty of it as well is that like there's always like pubs or like con clubs or liberal clubs or whatever, where they always have like an excess of glasses that they get given by by breweries and whatnot. And I'm guessing for safety reasons you've got to be kind of selective in some of the props you use. Like some of them might be like just solely decorative, so that you don't get glass smashing everywhere. But when it comes to paraphernalia and things that you can put around the place, you could, instead of having to buy it all, like you said, you can just go into some of the places around here, maybe a fish and chip shop that's about to close and get a chip shop fryer and things like that.
And
Is that the kind of thing that...
Yeah, we have done a bit of that. So we've got some glassware and things. We've been speaking to local bars around here and suppliers. Some that we use as part of the theatre. So like the beer pumps will come from some of them. The working beer pumps will come from them because I don't really want to buy
a brand new one. No.
Yeah, or buy one on eBay that then they actually have to drink from and you've no idea where it's from. So some of that will come from local breweries. Glassware has come from pubs. It's amazing how you can knock on someone's door and say, oh, we're doing this random project. Any chance you've got any of this stuff? And they go, we've got loads. Because, you're right. The actual, like people like Carlsberg will give them loads of stuff.
But you can just give them a special thanks and a mention in the programme as well, right?
Exactly.
Which means that, they might be giving something for free, but in a way you can give them the flyer, they can put that in their pub, and then you can kind of reciprocally sell their place in the show as well. You can say like, oh, we had some glassware, or we had some pump clips, or we had this given to us by these companies. And it means that hopefully it means people will watch this show and then they'll go, oh, you know what? Oh, I haven't been there for a while. I'll go to that pub. Oh, let's try that. Let's go have fish and chips there.
And it's keeping it local, isn't it? I mean, we shouldn't maybe say that we're getting some pumps from Manchester, but that's where they were from. So that's where I'm going.
They're just over the hill, aren't they?
But it's becoming, that's the fun bit we're at now. I mean, I'm not saying this wasn't fun, but until last week, it is just wood and ideas, really. It's now coming to life, the back bar. That was a big change, putting the back bar on. It's now bringing all those bits together to make it feel like a real place that you should be able to drink at. Maybe we'll have a go. Maybe we'll just check that it all fits and works. And it's amazing how we just start leaning.
I'll come do an episode here for that. Nah, I'm not drinking. But the thing I was going to ask you, just as a last thing, is obviously you can see with the pub, there's no windows. Is that purposely designed to make it feel like a really old-fashioned, dingier, like more closed-in pub where it's very exclusive and select, and it's very contained.
80s working man's club. That like the glassware and things we've picked, proper tulip cups, and comes in the men's pint size and the little ladies ones. It's like that style.
It's very much a tap room.
And the stools and things that'll dress it, tables, that'll all feel like it's not been brought up to speed. It's just
same with the chip shop. Then obviously you've got the windows, because if I'm right in thinking, the windows are there so that you can see the queue and people walking past, so that you can see it's actually on a Yorkshire street. It's not just a random fish and chip shop.
So that gap that looks like we've sort of left nothing there, that will be two entrances, one into the pub with a corridor almost off it. And then the same for the chip shop. And you're right, that will feel as if they're coming down the outside of the chip shop. Because this should feel much smaller. Like chip shops are smaller than pubs generally. So
true.
Just trying to get those two scales across as well. And there's all sorts of it. Like you can put anything you want off in the wings, because as long as it's signposted right and it talked about in the script, then off there is the store cupboard and all those. It's like anything upstairs, and that's where John, who's the sound designer, has already started playing with those of where can we position speakers so that when they go upstairs and the step always creaks, it's like that's what's fired from sound, so the audience will hear the creak of.
And they'll feel like, there is a flat or whatever above that chip shop. It's like that sound as they go off stage tells the audience. You can't see it visually, but you know it's there.
So that's sort of where we're at the minute. Still at building block stage, but it's coming together. They've got 2 weeks left really of build time in here, just under.
And then as the final week, is that basically just getting it all visually prepared, making sure you've got all those props or little kind of bits of set design, and then the painting and all of the vinyls and whatnot?
Yeah, all that'll be on by the time it'll get stripped down before the show, and then rebuilt on the Sunday just before we start. So we've got the whole of Sunday to put it all in and dress it and put the little things in and get the pumps working and put lighting into these and all the different little tweaky bits that we can do.
I suppose my last question really is just, obviously you said that the theatre hasn't really done something like this before, where you've been involved in the build, the design, everything from the ground up. In terms of how it's going to be set, you've obviously got your fixed bar and chip shop that aren't going to move throughout the show. So you've got like very little kind of moving parts to the set, and then you've got the shared space in the middle. But when you come to Act 2, there's, I believe, some changes happen to the chip shop that kind of obviously can't be too many structural changes. It'll be aesthetic changes. Is that a case of the technical crew are just going to be able to kind of come in and just literally put stuff over the existing.
Yeah, so that is part of the design process of how do you make something. And we always go down the side of things should be removed, because it's much easier to remove than add things. Yeah. Some bits get added on, but generally that'll be things like, I'll not give it all away, but we're looking at the old chip shop has horrible lighting. Whereas actually it's like, we've got new, it's like it comes to life again, and the lighting can change and shift. Not just like the lighting that is lighting the scene, but physical lampshades can fly in, fly out, to try give a bit more of that change. Because you're right, it's a tricky thing to have one set and then completely change it in 3 minutes, rather than like if you were doing up a chip shop, you'd not do 3 minutes of doing it up.
Spend quite a while doing it.
So it is about that, and some of that is still working it out. So yeah, if you've got any great ideas, write them down on that paper and they'll cross them out.
Should we have a pint while we talk about it?
The right height of the thing.
For me it is, perfect. Awesome, thank you very much.
Bro, no worries, pleasure, exciting.
So, massive thanks to James there. That was really, really interesting to see how, like you said, the first time he's approached building and designing a set for a show from scratch with no reference point again.
Yes, there's a claim there that James doesn't have any experience. I don't, no, absolutely not.
Oh yeah, that's bollocks.
James is putting on so many shows over and over. And James has been doing this. He looks very young, does James?
He is quite young.
But I've known James since, we were doing shows together in the Cellar Theatre with a company called Dick and Lottie. Doing Akeborn plays and a couple of Alan Bennett plays. James was always a central part of those as well, at an incredibly young age. Yeah. The guy has one of the best senses of humour. He's so wonderfully dry.
I was just about to say, he's like drier than fish and chips without salt and vinegar.
Exactly right. Yeah, we can't have that.
No.
So, I think James is incredible. He's a huge part of this operation. But also, if you've seen a show at LBT ever, you'll have seen James's contribution. Yeah. Because he's there.
He's your go-to guy a lot of the time, isn't he?
Very much so.
But it's not just all James, right?
No.
There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes.
There's Will, there's Brett, there's Paul, there's so many.
There's John, there's Joe, there's...
Were you impressed by the set?
Do you know what? I, as a former barman of 5 years, I love a pub. Yeah. At the moment, not drinking as well. So sadly, I can't sample any of the beers with them to make sure that it's an authentic experience in that pub. But I also, whilst we've been doing this podcast and on the run up to By George, have been really, really excited about fish and chips. And as we said on last, seriously, I've got really addicted to the idea of having fish and chips again. So as Becky said on the last episode, with the fish and chip shop van outside, I think the thing for me is that you get this really visceral experience when you come see this show, and seeing it as it is at the moment. Obviously, without that chip shop fryer top to it, you kind of don't really see it as a fish and chip shop or a pub yet. Yeah. But if you use your mind's eye to picture how it could look. And the most important thing is that you've got to remember that it's not going to be a brand new fish and chip shop or a brand new pub. It's going to look like the fish and chip shop and the pub that you have in your mind when you think about where you used to go when you were younger, like maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. They are going to feel lost in time still, aren't they? And they're going to be, like he said, they're going to be worn in. So you're going to go in there and you're going to go, this is how it should be.
James is going to be exhaustive with this. Yeah. As he said, he's going to Manchester to pick up a set of taps, and it's all been sourced from around the north, so it's going to feel legitimately northern, aged.
I think that's the crucial thing, isn't it? Is that you've got to have that authenticity, like you said earlier, with you being in your boxes, or briefs, whatever they end up being, to have that kind of level of parody wouldn't make sense. So this has got to feel like you're going into that fish and chip shop. Yeah. You're not sat in a theatre. No. You're going in there, you've walked through the door and there's the smell of fish and chips, the bar's open. You're going to have a similar experience off stage as you are, before you get into the theatre. Yeah. And that experience really matters to selling this whole production, doesn't it? The performance is
Yes.
all about being in the north and experiencing these inherently northern things.
Yeah, but it's another point there is that I didn't realise it needed to be authentic. There's a lot about this show that has happened that has nothing to do with my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Bear in mind how much Maria has put into this and how the visualization. That's not how I saw this show when I wrote it.
No.
That's how Maria saw this show.
Yeah.
She said it's a one set show. You can put the orchestra up there.
Yeah.
We can have pub on one side because it's a war between a pub and a chip shop.
Yeah.
So therefore you've got conflict in the staging. She's also been instrumental in the costumes and how a colour theme comes through as well. So it ain't. I'd love to say, that's exactly how I saw this show.
Yeah.
Look at that stage. It's not.
But for you, I suppose it was more about the story of Pauline, and it was. In the write-up for the show that the LBT's done on their website, it's all about strong northern women and their story. And the fish and chip shop and the pub are actually just
totally
there,
incidental,
aren't they?
Yeah, for me, the passions about this project lie in certain sections of the orchestration, but also in the themes of empowering women.
Yeah.
So a lot of what you're seeing and what's on the surface of the show has very little to do with my thought process. So I'm just thrilled that we've got people like James here who can put this forward.
Bringing it all together.
Oh, it's amazing. Can't wait to see the thing. And if you want to see the thing, why not come and join us at the lbt.org, where you can buy those tickets. That's the website.
And don't forget that you can also scan this here QR code that will take you to Chip Shop Musical Podcast's Instagram handle. And on there, you'll be able to click on our link tree, which means that you can see the behind the scenes, what's going on. We'll have some throwbacks to some of the episodes, some of the funny outtakes of all the funny things that we've said. You can also go onto the YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to Richard's YouTube channel and watch more of these episodes, or you can listen to them if you'd prefer by clicking onto that option as well. And that's pretty much all we have to say for this week, isn't it, Rich?
It is. It's getting close now.
It is. We're nearing the end of the podcast, and we're getting to the point where everything's all going to come together, and we're gonna be watching the show very soon.
Yeah, our plans for the last podcast. There's a podcast episode due to go out on the week of the show. We might, if you stay subscribed, we might do a quick bonus episode once we've finished, just to see what's coming next, but also the reaction to By George and see what people made of it.
Yeah. So if you're around after the show, there might be a Matt right here. He might come and find you, and he might say, "Oh, what did you think of the show?" So don't be alarmed. You can get your fish and chips from the fish and chip shop van. You can get a pint as well, and you can have a chat with me after the show. And hopefully, you'll have nothing but good things to say about it. So,
well, we'll see. If you want to comment to me directly, then you can go on to richsykes.com and leave a comment for me there, and I'll answer that for you.
Awesome. Right, thanks very much, Rich, and until next time.
Hi, man.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Richard Sykes, and I wrote By George. The show is a very personal story. It's a local story, so it's all about my childhood in Yorkshire, growing up around Yorkshire women, strong women. It's also about family, so the strong family bonds that we had around here when I was a kid as well. This musical really elevates performers of a certain age that perhaps thought they were done with musical theatre and couldn't get the leads anymore. And these incredible performers from my prime period about 20 years ago are the ones that are really elevating the piece. They are sensational. Can't wait to see them perform, and rehearsals are an absolute joy.
My name's Neovia Armitage, and I'm playing Marge in By George. She's the villain, which is really interesting to play. The reason she's important is that she learns that George has money of his own. And she's looking for husband number 6, and that would be a good fit. So she sets about to divide and conquer, which is one of her songs, to divide and conquer the leading lady, Nikki, playing Pauline, and George. And she wants to get in there and steal George off Pauline. So I haven't been on stage for 20 years, and I used to do lots of shows back in the day, and Woodhouse was one of the main societies that I played with. And then I went away to have kids and form a business. And now I'm back for this one, so really excited about the whole thing.
Musical theatre should be vibrant, it should be exciting, but it's so rare to find something that accentuates incredible female performances of a certain age and is local. I am absolutely thrilled that Woodhouse Musical Theatre Company, my company, are forming a bond with Lawrence Batley Theatre to make this happen. It's a real combination of incredible talents, and it's so nice to be a part of. I hope the audience laughs to start off with. It's a massive comedy musical. I also hope they come out finger clicking to some of the songs, because there's some very catchy numbers in there, and they're all brand new. It's amazing to see.